Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me because today we're diving into a totally fascinating dynamic that's unfolding right now in the world of financial technology. Let's just jump right in. This week we're putting a spotlight on three absolute fintech giants, Mastercard, Block, and Nubank, and looking at how they are completely reshaping their relationship with one really core concept: ownership. We're going to see one company closing a door, another paying a pretty massive bill for its past mistakes, and a third unlocking a brand new door to some serious growth. But to really wrap our heads around this, I want you to step totally outside the world of finance for just a second. Think about Wimbledon, right? They just wrapped up that incredible fortnight of tennis. When you watch the finals and you see the champion hoisting that beautiful, iconic trophy up in the air, it actually begs a really interesting question. Who really owns the Wimbledon trophy? Well, here's the brilliant twist. The winners don't actually get to keep it. The All England club retains the actual original trophy. The champion just gets to hold it for the flashing cameras. Maybe they take home a replica. But the true ownership, it never actually changes hands. And honestly, it's a perfect metaphor for our explainer today. Right now in fintech, ownership is the absolute theme of the day. We're watching companies shuffle the literal keys to their empires, trading them away, paying the price for not managing them, or finally getting their hands on them. Okay, so let's kick things off with our first story, the exit and handing back the keys. Look at the sheer scale here. It's literally massive. Mastercard isn't just that familiar overlapping circle logo on your credit card. They actually own Vocalink. And Vocalink is essentially the underlying payments plumbing for the entire United Kingdom. It processes over 90% of British salaries, handles more than 70% of UK household bills, and an absolutely astounding 98% of state benefits. This is the foundational infrastructure for how a whole country's money moves. And yet, Mastercard is exploring a sale of its majority stake in it. Now, the crucial thing to look at here is the math. Way back in 2016, Mastercard bought a 100% stake in Vocalink for roughly $937 million US. Cut to today, and they're looking to sell a 51% stake for about $535 million to a bank-backed entity called Delivery Co. to build the UK's next-gen platform. So if you're doing the math, that represents a noticeable discount. Why in the world would a foundational player sell off a dominant asset for less than it's initially worth?
Well, in a word, friction. This brilliantly illustrates what happens when owning the infrastructure becomes, frankly, more trouble than it's actually worth. See, there's been growing unease over in the UK about having their strategically critical financial infrastructure sitting directly under American ownership. Plus, Vocalink took an £11.9 million fine that's almost $16 million from the Bank of England just last year for control failures. So no, this isn't exactly Mastercard cashing out at the very top of the market. It's kind of more like a sports team trading away a talented role player because the locker room fit just stopped working. Mastercard didn't build this massive asset just to babysit UK regulators forever, and this is a really clear sign they're finally ready to let London take the wheel.
Moving right along to part two, the settlement and paying for past mistakes. Look, with platform ownership comes massive responsibility. And honestly, Cash App completely failed to manage theirs. What happened here was basically a direct, step-by-step roadmap for scammers to thrive. Step 1. Investigators found Cash App allowed accounts to be opened with minimal ID verification. Step 2. They placed absolutely no limits on how many accounts a single person could open. And Step 3, which is perhaps the most damaging, for years there was literally no official customer support phone line. This meant users who had just been scammed were left to randomly Google their way into finding fake scammer-run support lines. Just an absolute nightmare. And the cost of all this negligence? It has been absolutely staggering. I mean, even before this week's news, it is super vital to remember that the CFPB already hit them with a massive $175 million penalty just this past January for these exact types of consumer protection failures. Which brings us to the new massive number for today, $45 million. Block just had to write yet another check. This new settlement resolves claims from 46 different states and Washington, D.C. The states basically argued that Cash App completely failed to protect its users from fraud, all while out there actively marketing itself as having bank-level protections that, quite simply, did not actually exist. But what's really fascinating here is how Block is actually framing this. The company's official stance refers to this whole situation as just a legacy matter, and they're admitting absolutely no wrongdoing. It's a classic piece of corporate spin, and it sharply contrasts with the very real, very painful experiences of those scammed consumers who were just left out in the cold. At the end of the day, though, the true cost isn't that 45 million bucks. I mean, for a company the size of Block, that's practically a rounding error, right? The real penalty is the strict mandate to completely overhaul their infrastructure. They now have to implement 24/7 live phone support and completely put an end to the marketing practices that fueled this fraud in the first place. It gives off very strong pay the fine now, fix the culture later energy. Quietly settling a bill is the easy part. Actually changing how you manage the platform you own, that's the hard part.
All right, let's pivot to our third and final story today, the upgrade, or becoming the landlord.
So, Nubank. We all know they are already the largest digital bank in Latin America, having scaled massively since they were founded in Brazil back in 2013 by really leaning into underbanked markets. Well, now their Mexican subsidiary just hit a massive regulatory milestone, a full multiple bank license from the Mexican banking regulator. In plain English, what this means is they're officially required to launch banking operations within 30 days. This is huge because it officially unlocks their ability to roll out a way wider array of credit, payments, and savings products.
And this milestone brilliantly captures the shift in their entire business model moving forward. Up until now, Nubank has basically been a guest in Mexico, essentially renting the underlying financial infrastructure to get by. But with this full banking license, they become the homeowner. Mexico is their absolute next major leg of growth, and as of right now, they are no longer just renting space. They are officially the landlord.
So let's pull all these threads together, right? What we've explored today are three totally distinct ways that these massive giants are interacting with the concept of ownership, all in the exact same week. You've got Mastercard actively relinquishing control of strategically critical UK payments plumbing. You have Block paying a really heavy financial and structural price for negligent management of the platform they supposedly own. And then you have Nubank leveling up to achieve full foundational ownership in Mexico. Which leaves us with one final kind of wild thought to wrap up today's explainer. We just saw how totally fluid the concept of ownership is for the companies that are quite literally building the future of money. So ask yourself this. If even the absolute biggest fintech giants are constantly shuffling their ownership, trading away access, and rewriting the rules of the platforms they control, who really holds the keys to your digital wallet? Think on that. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack these stories today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.